It was late October, the kind of night where the wind howled like a wounded animal, and the moon hung low, shrouded in ominous clouds. I stood at the foot of the ladder leading up to my attic, heart pounding in my chest as I recalled the strange noises that had echoed through the house for weeks. Just hours before, I had heard a soft thud followed by a whispering sound, the kind that crawls under your skin and makes you question your sanity. I took a deep breath, steeling myself for what lay above, knowing that whatever haunted that attic would soon be brought to light. As I climbed the creaky steps, dust motes danced in the air, illuminated briefly by the weak beam of my flashlight. The attic smelled musty, a combination of old wood and dampness that made my stomach churn. My grandmother's old trunk set piled in the corner, their leather cracked and peeling as if they held secrets long forgotten. I could hear my breath echoing in the silence, a reminder that I was utterly alone, or so I thought. Something shifted behind one of the trunks, a subtle sound that sent chills racing down my spine. I hesitated, anxious to turn back and forget I had ever ventured up here. But the curiosity gnawed at me like a hungry rat, urging me to uncover the truth. "It's just the wind," I muttered to myself, trying to drown out the rising sense of dread. Taking another shaky step forward, I aimed the flashlight toward the movement I had seen, my heart racing as I called out, "Hello? Is anyone there?" The air grew still, punctuated only by the creaking of the old wood underfoot, as if the attic itself was holding its breath. Nothing answered but the echo of my own voice, and yet the feeling that I wasn't alone persisted. The flashlight flickered for a moment, causing the shadows to dance wildly across the walls, heightening my tension. I focused on a particular trunk that seemed to hum with a strange energy, as though something within was alive. I approached it cautiously, my hand trembling as I reached out to unfasten the rusty latch. As it clicked open, the musty air released a wave of forgotten memories that smacked me in the face like a ghost from the past. Inside, I found nothing but old clothes, yellowed and moth-eaten, their colors faded into an indistinct mush. I felt a wave of disappointment wash over me. Nothing ominous awaited me inside. But then beneath the pile, I saw something metallic glinting in the dim light. I dug deeper, pulling out a small ornate mirror framed in tarnished silver, its surface scratched and smudged with age. Strangely, it was still polished enough to reflect the beams of my flashlight, and when I looked into it, a shiver ran through my body as I was momentarily startled by the face staring back at me. But it wasn't mine. The face in the mirror, though faded and worn with time, was unmistakably that of a young girl. Her eyes stared back at me, hollow and dark, surrounded by unruly curls that framed a sunken visage. My breath caught in my throat as my pulse raced, and for a fleeting moment, I felt something shift in the atmosphere around me, a cold breeze that seemed to whisper secrets. I could almost hear a soft giggle echo in the recess of my mind, a childlike laughter that sent goosebumps cascading down my arms. I staggered back, my instincts screaming for me to leave the attic at once, but deep down, my mind was battling against my instincts. I couldn't just leave it there. There was a story in that mirror, a story that felt desperate to be uncovered. I reached for it again, but in doing so, a sudden blast of cold air knocked the mirror from my hands, sending it crashing to the ground, shattering into countless pieces. My heart raced as I stood frozen in shock, the laughter now replaced by an unsettling silence that felt heavier than the attic itself. I quickly turned to flee, but something drew my gaze back to the remnants of the mirror scattered across the floor. Among the shards lay a lone piece, still mostly intact, and etched along its edge were words I could barely make out. "Help me," they read, almost like a desperate plea clawing its way out from the past. Chills rolled through my spine as I reached down, my fingers trembling as they brushed the cold glass. Suddenly, the air grew thick, and I heard the faint giggle again, louder now as if it were coming from right behind me. I whipped around, but the attic was empty, the shadows stretching ominously across the walls. I stumbled back, panic coursing through my veins, and the laughter faded into a wailing cry that pierced the silence. It was as though the very walls were weeping for the lost soul trapped beneath them. My mind raced, desperately trying to rationalize what was happening. Was my home truly haunted? Was that mirror a gateway to something darker? I turned to leave, each step feeling heavier than the last, the oppressive weight of the attic bearing down on me as if it were trying to keep me there forever. Just as I reached the ladder, the attic door slammed shut with a deafening bang, startling me into a full sprint. "Let me out!" I screamed, my fists pounding against the wooden barrier. Panic surged through me as I clawed desperately at the door, but it wouldn't budge. The laughter had returned, swirling around me like a malevolent breeze, mocking my attempts to escape as if the house itself reveled in my fear. Finally, with a surge of adrenaline, I threw my weight against the door one last time, and it burst open, sending me tumbling down the ladder. I landed with a thud in the hallway below, dazed but determined to escape. I pushed myself to my feet, racing down the corridor, heart hammering in my chest, as the echoes of laughter chased me. It felt like the house itself was alive, eager to keep me trapped in its dark secrets. I burst through the front door and into the cold night, gasping for breath as if escaping the clutches of some unseen force. The only sound accompanying me was the wind, shrieking through the trees like a chorus of lost souls. It wasn't until I reached my car that I dared to glance back at the house, its windows dark and foreboding, silhouetted against the eerie glow of the moon. But even as I drove away, I could hear that laughter still ringing in my ears, a haunting melody that promised to linger long after I had left. Days passed and I couldn't shake off the feeling that something had followed me from that attic, something sinister that had woven itself into the fabric of my life. I tried to forget, to ignore the palpable dread that had settled in my bones, but it was futile. I avoided the attic, sealing off the door, convinced that whatever resided within that space was best left undisturbed. Yet as the nights grew longer and darker, I could hear whispers at the edges of my dreams, calling me back to the attic, beckoning me to confront whatever lay hidden in the shadows. I often wondered if I would ever be free from what I had unleashed. Then one night I was jolted awake by the sound of soft footsteps above me. My heart raced as I lay still, straining to listen. There it was again, the unmistakable sound of someone pacing in the attic as if they were waiting for me to return. I lay frozen, fear coursing through my veins, a desperate urge to flee the house, battling against the sick curiosity that drove me to investigate once more. The laughter echoed in my mind as I realized that I may never truly escape the shadows that had intertwined with my life. With a flicker of resolve, I threw off the covers, my legs carrying me to the attic door, each step feeling heavy yet resolute. My hand trembled as it hovered over the knob, and for a moment I hesitated, remembering the horror I had experienced before. But I turned the handle, and the door creaked open, a low moan that echoed through the stillness of the house. I stepped inside, the darkness wrapping around me like a shroud. There, in the gloom, I could almost discern the outlines of the trunks, the mirror shards glinting menacingly on the floor. I stepped in, and the air felt electric, charged with the same strange energy I had sensed before. The whispers swirled around me, filling the space with an unsettling symphony of disembodied voices. It was as if they were welcoming me back. Help me, they seemed to chant, and I couldn't tell if they were inviting or warning me. I gripped the flashlight tightly, illuminating the cracks in the walls where darkness pooled, and as the light flickered, I caught a glimpse of movement in the corner of my eye. In a heartbeat, I turned, scanning the corners of the attic, and there, amidst the shadows, I saw her, the girl from the mirror. Her features clearer now, emerged from the darkness, her hollow eyes fixated on me. I staggered back, unable to tear my gaze away from her outstretched hand, the very embodiment of sorrow and longing wrapped in a cloak of desolation. My heart raced as I understood that she was trapped within the attic, just as I had been. And with that realization, a new terror unfurled inside me. Was I to become her next victim, or was I the one meant to free her? But before I could make sense of it all, the laughter exploded around me again, booming like thunder, and everything went dark. I stumbled back, falling into the pile of trunks, and as I hit the ground, the weight of the attic enveloped me completely. I gasped for air, panic setting in as I lost all sense of reality. It felt like the very house was closing in, the walls pulsating with a life of their own, as the voices grew louder, drowning out my screams. And then, just as suddenly as it began, silence fell. I lay there, disoriented, unable to comprehend whether I had lost consciousness or if I had slipped into a different realm altogether. The air felt thick and suffocating, and as I struggled to my feet, the girl was gone. The attic seemed different now, as though the shadows had deepened and the very essence of the place had shifted. Was I forever bound to this eerie existence, or had I merely scratched the surface of something much more sinister? I stumbled back to the ladder, driven by a primal